Hi, everybody. I'm Brooke, and this is Conversations with Brooke. Today, I wanted to talk about an issue that I get asked about a lot, which is sexual shame. So, if you've been in, and it's very common with a lot of religious backgrounds, shame is a way that a lot of people try to use to control, regardless of the background that you came from. Sometimes parents do it. Sometimes, as parents, we do it. And, you know, kind of the easiest way to explain what that looks like, just so that everybody understands what shame really does, is where you try to make somebody feel bad about something so that they change their behavior. That's manipulation, and that is controlling. So, like with my children, I use my children as an example just to give kind of an idea. There's a very big difference in me. If something happens with one of my children, if my son or my daughter come to me about something, and me trying to make them feel bad about the incident so that they don't continue the behavior, and teaching them about how to feel empowered about a situation so that they choose to make better decisions. They're very different. Now, when we're talking and we're looking at emotions, so one of the things about emotions is that there are, if you rated emotions by higher and lower levels, shame rate's really low. So what does that mean? When you're trying to change a behavior, the best way to do it is to get into a higher feeling state. So to be happy about things in your life is more motivating than not feeling negative about something. So it's much more motivating. Love is a more motivating emotion than anger. Although they can both push you, one is going to get you farther than the other one. So you want to look for what I would call higher emotions to motivate you towards things. So when we're talking about something like shame, and specifically sexual shame, which is used often in religious backgrounds to control, and there's a lot of things people can use to control, but sexually shaming people is one that's pretty strong. And that goes everywhere from sexual preference or sexual experiences. So the way that it played out for me and what I grew up in is we were taught from a very young age. First off, we were taught that, we had one person that we were supposed to be within our life. They didn't use the word soulmate, but we'll call it a soulmate just for ease of understanding for everybody. So we had one person that we were told that we were supposed to be with, but at the same time, we were told that we would know when that person was there because we would be told by spirit or one of the ministers who that person was supposed to be. And if we had any interactions with somebody that was outside that person and outside the person who was supposed to be our soulmate, that was considered an act of integrity, and that was also considered something that was really looked down incredibly negatively. So there was this idea. It was interesting because as my kids got older and I began raising them, I wanted my kids to learn to have experiences, because I feel like when you have experiences, you're able to navigate life a little bit more, and you're going to make mistakes. But so when my kids started dating, it was me teaching them how to make better decisions about the relationships that they had in their life, where I was taught that I was only going to have one relationship and I needed to figure it out and basically don't fuck it up, which is an incredibly horrible amount of pressure to put on somebody. But there was also a lot of sexual control about the relationships that we had. So there was not a lot of discussion. There was not a lot of discussion about the healthy way to have relationships. It was more of don't do this, and it was don't have affairs. I mean, a lot of the basic stuff, right? Stuff that we know, but why do people fall into that kind of stuff? It's because they don't know how to get out of situations. So it was like, don't have affairs, don't have this, don't have, we were controlled down to the point of being told what was and wasn't allowed in our bedrooms. So when I say this, I'm talking about that even when I was in a relationship with my husband, I was told what I was and wasn't allowed to do. So there was a particular meeting or process, which I've spoken about before. So a process was where they would circle us all up, and this particular one was based on younger couples. So all the young couples were brought to a room, and so this is all the couples in the community were brought to a room to sit down. Specifically, and there was probably 10 couples, all between the ages of, I may have been one of the younger couples in the room, and I want to say that I was 17 or 18 years old, all the way up into the probably mid-20s, so maybe about 10 couples. And there was 2 or 3 of the ministers were there, and they started the meeting with saying, we are going to sit and we are going to discuss who is and isn't having oral sex. And that was how it started. And then they decided they were going to go around the room, and one by one, everybody had to discuss if they were. And then we were told that there was allowed nothing private within our relationships. Now, these are couples that have been married, some of them for several years. Most of them had kids. Probably all of them had kids. I may have been one of the few ones who didn't have kids, and I may have been pregnant at this meeting. I probably was pregnant or was almost pregnant. And then they went around the room, and then we had to do something where we, which was a regular part of it too, was discussing out of integrities. And so out of integrities is where you basically, it was out of integrities was an absolute setup. It was, we're going to make everybody in the room admit who you're attracted to, and then we're going to make you feel like shit about it. And it also just caused so much fucking havoc in everybody's relationship, because you're supposed to sit and point to other people in the room that you're attracted to. It was an utter manipulative shit show. So then they go through, everybody had to admit whether they were or weren't having oral sex, because oral sex was not allowed. And then everybody had to um, talk about what private things went on in their bedroom, what private things they talked about with each other. And I literally remember at that time giving up on my relationship, because I remember thinking to myself, if I can't tell him things, and if things I meet so many people, and I've talked to a lot of girlfriends about this too, who are incredibly uncomfortable um, in discussing sex. And I don't know that this is all from religious backgrounds. I think there's a lot of it from religious backgrounds, because I think there's this idea within religions about, some shame about sexuality, and it's time we got away from that. And I think that there's, all these different communities that are coming out and that are basically saying, fuck this, I don't want a part of this anymore. And, there's within these communities of, the LGBT community, where it's like we're going to do what we want to do. And it's time that we're open to people being open about what does and doesn't work for them. And I think that we'd have more people who enjoyed their relationships and healed from some of the bullshit that they were raised in. And I think it's really common. I know as my kids have gotten, I know when my kids got older, and the other thing is growing up in the sexual experience that was not within whatever fucking auspice or whatever it was supposed to be with, the person you were told you were supposed to be with for the rest of your life. So it was like this big fucking sexual shaming that, the entire community of 100 to 200 people was like, oh, did you hear? And so it's like everybody knew about it. And it was like you had to walk around wearing this big fucking red A, like we're back in the goddamn dark ages. So I think that's probably more extreme than what a lot of people experienced, but I do know that a lot of people are not open, and so I think it's time that we start having a more open conversation about this. Um, there's a lot of people out there who are talking about positive sexuality and sexual experiences and just being able to speak about it openly. I tell everybody, research it. If it's something that you're uncomfortable with, there's TED Talks on it. If it's something that you want to have a more open conversation, begin discussing it with the person that you're with if you're in a relationship. If it's just something within yourself that you're working on, there's a million people who talk about sexual shame and have talks on it, and about being open about it. It should not be something that we feel closeted about. This should be a very open conversation. So anyway, I hope you guys all have an amazing day. Make sure you follow me and subscribe to my page, and also check us out at 100 Years of Bliss, or fill out our quiz at 100yearsofblissquiz.com, and talk to you soon.